Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, Screenwriting Step by Step, number 26. We are here every weekday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in order to take the journey step by step through writing a pilot from rough idea to finished pilot script. We are taking this journey together. I am trying to show you how I do this in the hope that it will demystify a little of it. It's not the only way to write something. It's not necessarily the best way to write something. It's just a way that I think will at least show you all the steps that you go through, all the wrong steps, all the re-steps, the stuff you do to make a rough idea into a working script. So let us begin. Did a lot of work on it, and it is exciting stuff. The first thing I had to get to was I did some work on the issue of Xena. Let's go back to the beginning here. Xena. Major character, villain, and yet I've really not spent enough time on her. I was working on getting Madeline and Norman, and then I suddenly thought, you know, their relationship is going to be central because Xena appears to be their rom-com confidant, their best buddy, and then she turns out to be the villain. So you need to build, when you do a twist like that, when you do a reveal, what you need to do is create a completely convincing wrong version. You can't just put up a straw man and then knock it down. You actually have to create a convincing character who is going to be able to pull off their mask, reveal their inner villain at the appropriate time at the end. And so I began to think about who is she, because she has two central relationships here. She is the sort of the go-between or the glue in this story with Madeline and Norman, and she's got to be sort of an unexpected partner with them. By the end of the pilot, the point is that they suddenly find themselves bound together by danger, by threat. These people who should not be together are forced together, and that's what hooks us into the story of, I wonder how that's going to work out. The thing you're always trying to do is set up a sense of suspense, a sense of, I wonder how this will go in the audience. And in this case, the thing that we're wondering about is A, how are they going to resolve this killer story? But more important, what's going to happen when these people who have a lot of reasons not to get along are tied together by an emergency? So I was thinking about who Xena is, what her arc is with both Madeline and Norman. And so the way I try to understand a character is I write down their story. I take the episodes in the outline that is just the ones that they're in, and I throw away everything else, and I just look at that because that's their experience of the story. Every character is taking a journey through your story. They're living in your story on their track. And what makes a story is that those tracks are crossing each other and bumping into each other and causing things to change for each other. So you need to be able to put yourself in the mind of each person on their track and be able to go back and forth between them. Hello, Wolf Powers. So what I do is I try to imagine, like, this is the story. If you were Xena and you were going through it, what would you think it was about? Because she's got her own agenda. And although there may be information that we want as writers to get to the audience, it's got to be delivered in the drama of this character trying to get what they want. In this case, what Xena wants is to take over the podcast. That was her initial instinct. It's why she caused the murder, actually did the murder. So what I did was I took just the beats in the pilot. I said, what is Zena's story in this episode? We meet her in one sense, and then we learn a little bit about her in each next step. And she also she's starting with a certain agenda. She's starting wanting to take over the podcast, and she runs into unexpected obstacles. The obstacles force her to get closer to Madeline and Norman than she intended. She doesn't care about them. She just wanted George's stuff. So I copied the outline or I copied from the outline these beats. The first time we meet Zena, she's calling Madeline to ask for the files and getting turned down. Then we see her with the group, the Zoom group. She's organizing the takeover of the podcast and assigning a mission to the crazy meth dealer. Then we see her privately dismissing Norman's objections. And then she gets the report that Norman has messed up this mission. And so she goes to Madeline's. She gets Madeline to look at the files. She discovers there's no secret evidence. And then she's with them when the killer calls and finds herself bound to them by the fact that they're all now possible victims. So those are the moments we have with Zena. Anything that we want with the character is going to have to be in those steps. That's what we got. We can always add some, but these are the things that I know have to happen for the plot to happen. So you always look at what you've got and say, how can I get this to work? So I started to work on it, calling and asking for files, not hard scene. But then this one, the talking to the Zoom group and taking over, saying, let's take over this podcast. Poor George, he's dead. We need to pick up the torch. We need to carry the flag and solve this mystery. And I thought, I'm not sure how that scene goes because it's a very decisive action. She's a very strong character here. And it worries me that she's that pushy and aggressive because I don't want it to be tipped that she is pushy and aggressive enough to be the villain. So I was sort of thinking, I don't know how that scene goes. And that brought up also another question, which was because I thought, how does she present herself to all these people to disguise the fact that she's a murderous villain? And I tried to think about different ways that she's disarming people, that she could be convincing them that she's just wanting to help. And I thought maybe she tries to get Norman and say, like, hey, maybe, trust Norman, don't trust me. It was too complicated. So then I brainstormed another thing. I said, well, wouldn't she say to Madeline, look, you don't care about this case, give it to me. And then I thought, well, wait a second. She does care about the case. It's her ex's murderer. But more than that, the police have said these files are evidence. And that really threw me off because I've set up a situation where it's all about Zena getting these files, and the police have said these files are evidence. Now, something I know just from earlier research on police stuff, where police are very big on the chain of evidence. Once they have evidence, it is very important that it not leave their control, because otherwise in court, the opposing attorney can say, you left that bag in the train station for a day before you picked it up. It could have been tampered with. So it's chain of evidence, chain of custody of evidence is very important. So the police are not going to just say to her, you've got this house full of evidence which may help us find a serial killer. Feel free to move in. We'll come back tomorrow. That's not going to happen. So what actually happens in that case is the crime scene is sealed. You've seen it in a lot of movies. They lock the doors. They put a sticky paper on the door so that if you open the door, it will rip it. It will be clear that someone has broken the seal. And it's a big warning. Don't open this door. But if it's sealed, she can't stay there. So I started to think, well, what if she sneaks back into the sealed place? I mean, George is sort of a nut job. Maybe he's, tinfoiled all the windows. And so if she can sneak back in, they won't even know she's in there. And then our whole story could still take place. So I started to work about that. And I thought it might be fun, like George might have a secret trap door or a tunnel into his house for escaping from whatever he's afraid of. And that was sort of a fun idea, but it brought up the bigger question about whether or not this evidence sealing thing is worth the trouble it's going to cause to the rest of the plot that I've already got. So I said, leave that aside for a bit, which is, I think, one of the big lessons I wanted to give today, which is stepping away. Sometimes when you don't know what you want to do with something, make a note of it, make it clear that you want to solve this problem, but then set it aside. So what I did was I put it here in the outline as a question, as a nice, bright, pink question, which means I can't feel my outline is done until I have solved this. So I did that, and then I moved on to back to Xena, because that was today's assignment to myself. In order to get work done, I will choose a small, specific task and say, stick to that for today. Just today's work is Xena. So I got back into the question of turning ideas for scenes into scenes, things you need to happen. Like, so much of an outline is, so much of an outline is, I need this to happen here. I need them to talk about the evidence here. I need the serial killer to call here. But then how do you turn that into a scene? Because a scene is something that a character needs to have happen. And like I said, Xena taking over the podcast, that's what she needs. But how does she do that without us knowing that she's a strong, dangerous person? I thought, is she a cheerleader? Is she begging? When I have a question, one of the things I do is I try to just brainstorm. Could be this, could be that, could be that. And I write it down, because then I can, as I said before, you step away, you come back, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, cheerleader just doesn't feel right, or begging doesn't feel right. That's a work process where you don't have to decide right away, because this is complicated stuff. This is why it takes weeks and months to outline a script. Outlines are tough. Outlines in many ways are harder than writing the script. If you get the outline right, the writing will work. And the hardest part is that no matter how precisely you get the outline, you don't get everything. There's a lot of stuff you have yet to figure out. So this is a really important thing to know. Outlines are where you do all the heavy lifting of thinking about your story and your characters. That's where you do it, away from the words. You don't want to be bothered trying to, first of all, if you write something that's really cool and funny, then you get attached to it. And even if it's bad for the story, you just don't want to give it up. So it is better to not write until you've got this pretty well worked out in your head. Not the only way to do it. My advised way, unless you are doing super great without it, if you can just breeze through a script without an outline, great. Go with God. I want to hear about how you do it. I couldn't do it. I never could. I could not figure out how to write a scene if I didn't know what it was about. So that's what the outline process is about. Okay, I'm going to quickly say hello to 234 Pika Pika, who is saying this is helpful. I can't stand crime podcasts, so your script is even more fun. I actually like them, but I know it's like, I think it's important to always have some affection for anything you're trashing. It just keeps you from being mean. So that's where I am, is that I like these things, but I see their weaknesses, and that's what I'm going to go with. Getting back to Xena, I had another big question. What was Xena's story before this with George? Like, did she know George? How she obviously knew him. She murdered him. What was their relationship with? So I'm just going to add that in here as an important question that has to be answered. When you got the questions, one day you get the answer. Okay. So keeping on working, I got to this, I knew that I had a kind of Xena, and I said, step away. This is one of the big lessons of today's episode. Learn when to step away. For different people, it's different. For some people, grinding is the solution. For me, it's a good way to go way, way on the wrong track. For me, the best way to make decisions is to do a little work on it, get it concrete, get a question, get it written down, and step away. Come back maybe a few hours later, maybe just work on a different part of it, and then come back. So I did that. I literally stepped away. I think I made lunch, and then I came back, and I started to look at Xena again. And I said, okay, forgetting all the things that my head was jumbled up with, what person do we need to meet? Who is this character that's going to surprise us later by being a killer? And so I thought she has to be helpless, vulnerable, hapless. And so I thought, but at the same time, she can't actually be helpless because she's going to be making a lot of things. Oh, wait a second. You can't see what I'm doing. All right. Here we go. So she needs to be helpless. She needs to be hapless, inept, incompetent, ineffective. But I thought helpless doesn't really work because she's the driving force behind all this stuff that's going on. So I thought, what kind of person can I make her that she would be gung-ho but ineffective? Gung-ho, but somebody that other people aren't worried about or afraid of or resisting. And so I thought, what if she's kind of foolish? What if she's so gung-ho that it's sort of sweet? It's sort of like, yeah, okay, nice. I hope that works out for you. And then I thought, because her character is going to be a person who desperately wants to be an influencer, wants to be famous online, that would be her ideals. That would be her idealisticness, would be social media buzzwords, social media concepts, ideas about reach and influence and all that stuff. So that sort of clicked with me. I thought, yes, I can see that character being someone that we would underestimate, that we would think was stupid or superficial or trivial, which is, we need our main characters to believe that. And especially since they're a lot older than her, if she's very heavily pushing things that are for a young person, it's going to be good. So that became the Xena that I want to go with. And so I wrote down that stuff I had just said, create Xena the confidant, the person that we can trust. Because I also realized I had originally said Madeline has to turn her down. Madeline has to turn her down because we need Xena to be motivated to send someone to steal the files. Obviously, that doesn't work if Madeline's saying, sure, come get the files. What I'm trying to do here is show you the logic steps that one goes through in creating a scene, because there's things you need to accomplish. I need to get Xena frustrated enough to send a meth head to steal the files, which is what motivates Norman to go stop it, which is what brings Norman and Madeline together. So I knew those things had to happen, but my question is, how do we get Xena to be the person who can do that? Especially because I realized Xena would absolutely want to talk with, Madeline would absolutely want to talk with Xena because she just came into her ex-husband's life and she hasn't talked to him in 30 years and he was murdered. So if somebody says, hey, I'm a friend of his, Madeline and the police would be like, we need to talk to you. We need to find out everything we can about what George was doing. So I realized that the answer is not that Madeline says, oh, you're a flake, go away. It's that Madeline can't give access because, as I said, the files are sealed. The evidence, the crime scene is not hers to distribute. So that worked. That was one of those cases where that sealing thing, that's going to work out. So then I began to work on the problem that I wanted to talk about here is when I came up with that character for Zena, I liked it. It made sense, but a little part of me said, kind of obvious. It's always difficult because you don't want, you're afraid of cliches. You're afraid of the predictable. You want to do something original and cool. And yet, if you go too far in the original and cool direction, because remember, you're thinking out this story in four-dimensional chess, and the audience is just getting one piece at a time. And sometimes they don't know who Zena is. So my fear that she would be too obvious if she was this type of person is actually worrying about a thing that they are not going to experience. The audience is not going to experience. They are going to buy this person. The question I have is, can I make them likable? And I think I can make Zena likable. At least I can make her interesting. I know I can do that. But the thing that almost tripped me up, and it happens a lot, is when you start to second guess yourself because you're afraid of an accusation. Start to red flag in your mind when you hear a little voice that says, oh, that's not going to work because this person is going to, this type of audience is going to not like it. Don't trust that voice. To a certain extent, you need to have faith in what you are writing. You need to make a choice and live with it. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. The price of this choice is that it might be cliched. That's okay. I can pay that price. It might be, you know what? If you take a cliche and you twist it up or you hype it up enough, it can be cool. There's lots of ways to deal with problems, but there's no way to have no price. There's no way to have everybody like everything. So the thing is, I need this character for various reasons to be this type of person, and my fear of the obvious was getting in the way. So I just wanted to talk about that. It takes a long time as a writer. It takes having done it a bunch and getting used to the experience of saying, oh, is that going to work? And then watching it work to say, oh yeah, that'll work. It's okay. You're overthinking it. And I had this feeling when I liked my idea for Zena and then stepped back and said, ooh, maybe it's too obvious. I red flagged that. I recognized that voice as not trustworthy. And I just want to talk about that because that's the kind of thing that you run into on a daily basis as a writer. You are going to make choices, and you are going to be afraid that someone won't like it. You're going to be afraid that you're not good enough. And honestly, there's nothing you can do about it. If you truly are not good, like if this is too obvious, oh well. Truthfully, I've done a lot of stuff where I've thought, oh, that's just dumb. And it works. So you need to have a certain amount of faith in yourself and faith in your choices in order to create anything. You just do. Will it be too obvious? Maybe. We're going to try it. So that is the big lesson for right now. Is there any, I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon. So anybody got any questions? Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a full episode of Ask Me Anything because I had some good questions over the weekend that I think deserve some time. I'm going to be talking about character. And so, in the meantime, going once, going twice. Anybody who's watching live want to ask a question? If not, I am going to say see you tomorrow. We're going to be doing a full Ask Me Anything. And that is it for today.